morning, guys. This weekend we decided to stay in Kingston. We actually went to church this morning, so we came out to Hellshire for fish. So we're on the south coast of Kingston, and in the backdrop you're seeing ships. About 3, 4, 5 ships are there, getting ready to either go back into port or head back out to sea. I didn't know that there are so many mansions in this part of Kingston. I guess this is St. Catherine. Beautiful. Jamaica is a beautiful country. This morning I want to talk to you about toxic matriarchy. This is not a very popular topic. I quite frankly haven't heard much discussion about it because we have so lowered the bar for motherhood that we've forgotten what it actually means to be the kind of mother that Jehovah, the creator of the universe, intended. There's a lot of debate about toxic masculinity, which is a reality. I mean, it's debatable whether the toxic is necessary because masculinity is masculinity. And men were made masculine to be hunter-gatherers, protectors and providers. So the concept of toxic masculinity is a bit redundant. But I do understand in the context of relationships with females and the way the game has changed, we can see exactly why there is such a thing called toxic masculinity. It's very real. But I'd also like to delve into the topic of toxic matriarchy, which quite frankly I haven't heard anybody talking about. Now I'll define toxic matriarchy as children being raised by mothers in the context of marriage or as single mothers or divorced mothers, and they're doing it obviously apart from Jehovah's kingdom principles. It may be surprising to know that the most prevalent occurrence of toxic matriarchy is actually within the context of marriage, with both parents in the household, because we have managed to redefine the terms of engagement for men and women to interact in the context of marriage. We take marriage vows and we go before the priest and we say, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, and we verbally commit to doing the marriage according to Holy Bible teachings. But then all of that is superseded by materialism and the rules of engagement that Satan has successfully and systematically created in the world, where we have the feminist movement that says women are equal to men. The truth of the matter is, in my humble opinion, a woman who's living according to Jehovah's kingdom principles are infinitely superior to men. It's unfortunate that we have reduced their God-given superiority to a matter how well they participate in the game that Satan has rigged that is never to their benefit. I don't know how many of us have wondered what has fundamentally changed between the days of our foreparents, our grandparents, great-grandparents, grandfathers and grandmothers. They were able to do marriage with a better approximation of what Jehovah intended. Truth be told, I was having a debate or a discussion with a friend recently, and I said to him that the transgressions of men today are arguably not as egregious as our forefathers and our foreparents in general. But what has changed is the way women relate to men, and it's all about finances. We have allowed finances to determine the authority structure in general. There's this notion that he who has the gold rules, and that's a golden rule. And in Jehovah's kingdom, that's totally antithetical, and the truth is, that is the recipe for disaster that we are reaping today. Because our grandmothers and great-grandmothers, the big mamas of the day, irrespective of what their husbands were doing, they were running such a tight ship at home to compensate in the best interest of the children. Mothers back then would never let their children any wiser as to the issues that they had with their fathers. And whether or not it's for economic reasons, they made every effort to ensure that their husbands or the fathers of their children would come home every night. Most children grew up seeing a semblance of decency in the interaction between their mothers and fathers, irrespective of the issues that were happening behind the scenes. This had nothing to do with the children. Today we have seen where the few people who decide to get married, there's a 54% chance that it's going to end in divorce. Why? Because the men are clueless about what it means to be loving their wives the way Christ loves the church. And the women, on the other hand, the last thing they want to do is to be submissive to their own husbands, albeit that they're able to submit to men on their jobs. We may want to argue that for most women you find today, their jobs or their economic means of survival are their husbands. That's who they're submissive to. Whoever puts money in their pockets is who they're submissive to. It doesn't matter if that's another woman's husband, or they call him boss, or whatever it is, as long as he pays the way, allows them to afford the things they need, then it's all fair game. Now, the notion of holding women accountable and responsible for certain things that are happening in child rearing and the childbirth process. We all know that all a woman has to say is no, and if a man insists on having sex with her, then he'll be guilty of rape and liable. But that has not stopped the huge incidence of children being born out of wedlock, which tells you that women are allowing the very men they complain about. They're giving them their bodies, which is the highest honor. They're giving them their womb. When a woman has a child for a man, that's the highest honor that she could ever give to a man. But they can somehow rationalize and justify having babies for men that they actually say they despise, they have no respect for. And in some cases, they don't have one, they have 2 and 3. And they end up raising these children by themselves, and society is supposed to say that they're somewhat exceptional because they're doing that without going back to the fact, how did they get in this position in the first place? Who granted access to men who were less than, to men who were not their husbands, so they could end up being pregnant and having children? They're the cause of what's happening in the world. Now, that's something that we have to have a strong debate about, because if women are not granting free access to the low caliber men who are fathering these children, then we should have a larger population of men in jail for rape. But we're not seeing that, so clearly the sex that's taking place is consensual. Now, back to the point where I'm telling you that the highest incidence, in my opinion, of toxic matriarchy happens within the context of marriage with 2 parents, because you don't have husbands who are loving their wives the way Christ loved the church, and you certainly don't have mothers who are submissive to their own husbands. So the children are actually watching out the dynamic play out. And this is compounded by the fact that most people, by the time they decide to get married, they would have almost exhausted premarital and extramarital sex with other men and women. So they enter these relationships with ungodly expectations. And all of this plays out subconsciously and otherwise in their expectations and the way they relate to each other in the marriage. And that's what they model for the children. And what has happened is that, particularly in the single women-led households with sons and daughters, the sons, for the most part, are highly feminized, and the daughters, on the other hand, are highly masculinized. Now, this creates a problem, because on top of men being feminized and women being masculinized, human worth is denominated in economical terms. So therefore, one's ability to earn a living, which is predicated on the jobs you have, your education in school, now means that, and we are finding women to be doing better in schools than men, so they have the better jobs. So we have a nation of paper pushers. So we don't need all of this masculinity for economic survival anymore. So technically, you don't need muscles to make money in this world. So women are out earning men, but they're now being even more ratchet than men could have ever contemplated in their whole life. Because this was a discussion I was having yesterday with a friend, that he was somewhat flabbergasted, is the word, taken aback, that he could have sex with a girl and she just walk off, never call. And it was neither here nor there to her. Chances are she would have gone on and maybe slept with another guy in the same night. Now, that is new territory for a lot of men, because mothers still raise the sons with expectation that they're going to find wives. Well, where are they going to find wives? Who will tolerate the kind of feminine men that these very same mothers have raised? The truth of the matter is, if most mothers, single mothers, married or otherwise, were to be honest, the sons that they've raised, they certainly would not want them for husbands. And they most definitely would not want their daughters to be married to the caliber sons that they're raising. And vice versa. The girls that they're raising, their own daughters, they certainly would not want their sons to marry any of these girls. So here's the catch-22. Mothers, who are the dominant force in socializing and raising children, are raising sons who are nightmares of husbands to other women's daughters. And their daughters are equally nightmare to other people's sons. So this is what we've created in the world, because these mothers, having done a poor job in terms of modeling like their foreparents, like their grandmothers and great-grandmothers, who in spite of their husbands being subpar, they were able to ensure that they turned out children who at least understood Jehovah's kingdom principles, because those mothers went to church. Those mothers ensured that their children had a firm biblical background. It is only in this modern day and age that we have children growing up and not knowing God. And we're seeing the consequences. We have these 14-year-old, 15-year-old murderers in Jamaica. I don't know what it is in the world, but I can speak to Jamaica. Most of the murders that are committed are young boys. And that is the toxic masculinity we're talking about. Because the boys who have not done well to fit into this new dispensation that requires intellect, this paper-pushing society, with all of that energy, they turn to crime. And they abuse women. And we have all of this dysfunction in the society. And it comes full circle that in spite of all the development and all the advancement that we claim that we've had, and women are doing so well, they're getting the worst end of the bargain, because they can't find decent husbands, because their mothers didn't raise their brothers to be good husbands, and they weren't raised to be good wives. And good is by the standard of Jehovah. So everybody is making money, and we're just living a materialistic life. Technically, the boys don't want to have wives. They just want to have sex. And the girls likewise. So Satan has just sat back, and he's smiling all the way to watch our sons and daughters just on automatic pilot, just doing his bidding. Because in this world, to even identify yourself as a Christian, somebody who has accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, that makes you a laughing stock. Because everybody is worshipping at the altar of expedience and money. And we're thinking that Jehovah can be mocked. But I'm here to say to you, as I've been saying every weekend, that until we return to Jehovah, nothing will change. Well, actually, I'm incorrect. It will change, but it will only get worse. I was raised by a divorced mother, and I must pay tribute to her and give testimony to her excellence as a mother, because I have never seen my mother with another man other than my father. Now, arguably, that would have created unrealistic expectation for me, because I was always looking for that kind of a woman, which was very rare. Very rare to find a woman like that in this godless society and its godless world, where everybody is equal in the eyes of society based on your economic earnings, based on your academic credentials, based on all the ungodly things that Satan controls. That's how we determine things. So my mother raised me in the church, trained me up in the way I should grow, and now that I'm old, I've never departed from it. And this is why, after one failed marriage, I'm here today with all the challenges. I'm committed to my wife, and I can tell you without fear or favor that I'll never cheat on her. I'll never be found wanting in an extramarital affair. I don't masturbate, fornicate, extramarital, whatever it is that is sexually related. Having been there, done that, and had a t-shirt from a failed marriage, and having children who are raised with toxic matriarchy. And I pray to Jehovah that the changes in my life will somehow impact them and the future generations of my kids and grandchildren, because toxic matriarchy is real, and it is the inevitable consequence when people don't get married and then do the marriage according to Jehovah's kingdom principles, where husbands are committed to loving their wives the way Christ loved the church, and wives in turn are submissive to their own husbands as unto God. And at the end of the day, until we start doing that, everything we're doing is doomed to fail. Our children are getting smarter and smarter. They're having more degrees than thermostats. They're lawyers, doctors, judges, Indian chief, but they're spiritual reprobates. And they're living meaningful lives. They're accomplishing everything within the context of Satan's world, but they're more miserable than anybody else has ever been generations before. You're having higher incidence of suicides when people are supposed to be doing better than they've ever done before. So I'm just going to encourage my viewers, as I always do, to keep seeking first the kingdom of Jehovah and his righteousness, and begin with reading the Holy Bible and practicing what it says. There are two answers to every question. Every question, every juncture in life you have a question. There's Jehovah's answer, and then there's everybody else's. And I'm here to tell you that everybody else is wrong. Jehovah is the only right answer. And the Holy Bible is the word of Jehovah, and it speaks to everything that you'll ever encounter. So I'll wrap up. It's a very hot day. My wife is beckoning to me that it's time to come. So have a blessed weekend and a blessed week. Until next week.